Practicing predictive play is among the most difficult things to begin doing in Street Fighter 6. However, it's an essential step to becoming a better player in the training room. Predicting is a numbers game. You'll never be right every time. It's a game of playing the odds. Ask yourself two questions. What's my opponent most likely to do? And how do I counter that option? Using this playstyle, you'll gather information, but if you're not cautious, you can quickly get lost in the sauce, getting inside your own head instead of the mind of your opponent. Welcome to the Dojo. I'm YohDood, and in this video, we'll be discussing how to train to become a better predictive player. Join the Dojo Club Discord server today by following the link in the description below, and join the Dojo Club in Street Fighter 6 as well. Yeah! There's a handful of moments offensively and defensively that you want to pay attention to, but only some of them apply to the training room. Here are a few to get you started. Okizeme is a term used by fighting game players, meaning to pressure an opponent as they wake up. The word itself isn't found in the Japanese dictionary, but is a combined term of the root words okiru, meaning to wake up, and semiru, meaning to attack or strike. Cool trivia aside, that was a long-winded way to say the first thing to begin predicting is how your opponent chooses to wake up after being knocked down. Training for this is quite simple. Put the dummy in all block mode, and then set these three wake-up options. Do nothing, attack using a crouching light punch or crouching medium kick, and finally, parry or backdash. You want the dummy to either block, attack, or escape on every wake up. Next, you'll have to choose a specific knockdown to work on. The most basic of these are throws. The idea here is to throw the dummy and then perform a setup that will beat out the opponent's options. I suggest finding specific setups involving a jump in or 50-50 mix up. Not everyone is going to mash buttons on wake up, so you need to be able to set up a hit throw or a high-low option to keep your opponents guessing. For sweep setups, you'll need to change your dummy's guard to after taking damage, and then they are more or less the same. Find a setup that works for you and go with it, but in case you can't quickly figure out how to do that, here are a few to get started. Combo setups will be a little different because typically they won't end in a hard knockdown. You'll need to take into effect that you have significantly less time for your mix-up, and your opponent will have a fourth option available to them, the backwards roll. Set the dummy to block after taking damage, and then turn on a random recovery. Then perform your combo as normal and mix up the dummy to beat out its options, like before. This will take the most practice, but finding a good mix-up from a combo can be as good as gold, as the time restraint may also be used as your opponent's disadvantage in the right circumstance. If you're having issues with the randomness, you could always turn off the dummy's options to practice one specific choice to learn how to beat a specific option, or to practice your setup as basically as possible. Remember to learn at your own pace, and focus on being a better player than you were yesterday. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Your enjoyment of the game is just as important as increasing your skill level. Training is important, but it's not as important as burning yourself out of wanting to boot up the game to begin with. The next thing to watch for is how your opponent begins a round. Mainly, you'll watch for these specific options. Do they walk backwards? Walking backwards indicates your opponent is passive. They are watching your moves for counterplay. If you feel your opponent is going to start the round this way, your best option would be to walk forward and begin pressuring them safely, or press buttons that cover a long distance. It can be safe or difficult to punish if spaced correctly. Do they do something unsafe? Most notably, you'll be looking for a drive rush into a button or throw, a round start jump and attack, or a wild swing that is unsafe on block. There are times, I'll admit, that I open a round as Manon with light dégagé to get an early lead on my opponent and put them on the back foot from the beginning. It also lets me know if I'm dealing with an impulsive player from round start, as they are most likely to get hit by this goblin-esque playstyle. It's not something I recommend, but it is something that does work for me from time to time. Remember that it's best to block if you think your opponent plays like they just want to press all the buttons. Do they do nothing? Similar to players who walk backwards, the most basic answer to this opening is to walk forward and establish an offense. Unlike the players who walk backwards, players who do nothing are more likely to be watching your movements more carefully to predict you in later rounds. Play normally here, just know that the test has started and you can't use your calculator for this one. I wanted to take a brief moment to say it's also important to watch how your opponent plays when they have advantage. How many times do they attack before going for a throw? Do they recognize your blocking and keep their offense safe? When they stop their pressure, do they crouch, walk forward, or jump at you? These are all tells that give you more of an idea of how to respond to your opponent. The unfortunate thing is these are all things that are better practiced in-game rather than in training. Playing predictively is best when your opponent is seemingly on autopilot. If you've noticed they've done the same thing on every wake up in the previous round, or you think your opponent will backdash for the 5th time with disadvantage, then try it out. If you're right, then you're in their head, and the rest of the set should be easy. If you're wrong, then you go back to the drawing board and play with a different playstyle, until you think you have a beat on what the opponent wants to do again. This is not a playstyle many players could feasibly stay in for the whole set, but more so as a format of keeping an advantage outside of the game, even if you don't currently have one inside the game. It's important to remember that you'll come in and out of this playstyle. It's paramount to grasp how things are going in a match while playing in this playstyle. Whether you have your opponent's number or they have yours is crucial to getting back on your game plan. If you're having difficulty predicting your opponent's next attack, it may be time to move on to a less risky strategy. Mixing it up when the time is right will keep you alive longer and give you more opportunities to understand how your opponent plays, and in turn it will give you a way to get damage and rounds. Switch off this playstyle anytime you are unsure of the flow of the round. Join us next time as we discuss how to train to be a better passive player. Later days.